Now let's talk about methods or functions in Apex. We have already seen an example of a method in our Hello World class, and the method that we defined there is print greeting, which had a simple debug statement to print Hello World. Now here we are going to do some deep dive about a method syntax, like how you can declare a method and define a method, and what are the key things that you need to know before you define a new method. So this is how the syntax of a method looks like. The first keyword in a method declaration is your access modifier, which is optional, because if you remember from our previous video, if you do not define access modifier, then Apex assigns a default modifier which is private. So that's why the access modifier in a function declaration statement is optional. But you should always define it. Even though if you want to keep it private, always define the access modifier so that it makes your code more readable. And if someone else wants to read your code, he can clearly see that this is a private method or a public method or maybe a protected or global method. Now, very important thing to remember here is if you want to declare your method as global, but if your Apex class is public, you cannot do it. Either you have to make your Apex class global as well, or you have to use a public method. So what it means in plain English is the inner containers cannot have less restrictive access modifiers than the outer container. So that's why in a public class, you cannot have global methods. But in a global class, you can have your public methods as well, global methods as well, even private and protected methods as well. Now the second keyword after the access modifier is the special keyword, which can be like static or maybe override. And we'll be learning about these special keywords in our coming videos. For now, just remember the usage of these special keywords is completely optional and you can declare your function without using these special keywords as well. The third keyword is the return type of your method. And if you remember our print greeting method from Hello World class, we had a return type as void because our method was not returning anything. But if you want to return something from your method, then you need to define the data type of your return statement. Like what is it that you are going to return? Is it a number that you want to return? That means is it an integer data type or do you want to return a string? Or it could be anything complex as well, like list of integers or list of integers, or maybe if you want to return map, set, anything, you need to give that data type here. And after that, you need to give your method name. So the fourth keyword in a method declaration statement is the method name itself. And these method names can be duplicate. So you can have multiple methods with the same name, but there are some conditions for that. And we'll be talking about that in a few minutes. After the method name, you have the parentheses. And within these parentheses, you can define the variables that your method wants to accept from anyone who is trying to access this method. Let's say if you want to have a method to sum two numbers, then you need to get these two numbers from the outer world, right? So in that case, you could have two parameters here. The first one could be integer type and you could call it like number one. The second parameter could also be a integer type and you could call it number two. And all these parameters, they need to be separated by a comma. And these are the mandatory parameters. So like whenever someone is calling your method or accessing your method, they must provide some values to these parameters, else they will not be able to call your method. And after that, the function body starts. Now let's come back to my previous statement where I said that you can have the same name for multiple methods. So what I meant is your method name can be same, but the method signature must be different. And a method signature is your method name plus the parameters it accepts. So let's say if I create a send method and it accepts a string parameter, then this could be my first method. I can again create a send method but this time maybe I can accept a list of string to send multiple message, or maybe a blob type to send a image or video. So this is also allowed, but you cannot declare another method with the same name, which is send, and the same data type, which is string. Either the number of parameters should be different or the type of parameter should be different. So overall, your method signature must be different than the previous one. Then only you are allowed to declare multiple methods with the same name. And this is what we call the polymorphism in Apex, where one named method will have multiple type of definitions based on the parameters we are supplying to it. And I think we have seen an example of this in our list video where we were using the add method in a list, which adds a new item or a new value to a list. So first we were using this add method without specifying the index where we want to add our new value. But later on, we used the index as well, but the method name remained same. We were still using the add method, but this time it was accepting two different parameters. The first one is the index and the second one was the item value. So now let's move on to the method body. And if your method has a return type, anything except void, then the last statement of your method is a return statement. But if your method is a void data type, that means it doesn't return anything, then you can skip the return statement. Now, the purpose of this return statement is to return the value to the caller, like who is calling this method. And the value of this return statement must be of the same data type as your return data type in the method. So that means if you are having a return data type as integer, then the return statement should also return something of the integer data type only. You cannot return a string here. And this return statement is compulsory if your method is having a return type anything except the void data type. You cannot save your method without defining the return statement. So I guess now we have some solid understanding about the methods or functions in Apex, and all the methods that we are going to declare in our coming videos, or the system methods that we are going to use, will start making more sense to you since now you know the method syntax and how a method operates or executes.